I gotta imagine Rogan's probably got a lot of stories of like people he sat down with, because also you also know you're on the world's largest platform. Then I'm sure people just
you're stoving up, you're locking up,
freeze up.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I've also heard people like going on there or other really big ones, like they have all these like talking points they want to get out, and instead of just like conversing,
they're trying to hit their bullet points.
Yeah, and they just lock up. But I think that's where Joe is so freaking good as an interviewer. He puts people at ease.
I've also wondered, and I don't know if this is good or not, but I mean, I wonder how many of those things he's actually recorded and just been like
dumped,
just hit the floor with that footage. Man, that's trash.
I've wondered too. Like, imagine like,
I wonder if it's like a lot or imagine a lot more
like,
than you think.
Okay, it's like I post all to my followers like headed to Austin, going to do Rogan's podcast, like pictures of me like at the studio, and then like it never comes out.
Just never comes out. It's real
like,
dud of it.
Yeah, Josh's was so bad I couldn't even
just
put it
couldn't.
Well, and I think he's mentioned he's had a couple of people where I think he's real like he's probably like gone down a rabbit hole like being interested in a topic, and then he gets somebody in, and he's like half hour in, it's like, oh, this guy's like completely full of shit.
Yeah,
because he's so inquisitive and he's so freaking smart that I would imagine there's probably been a few times of like, let's just not do this because
for sure
this is not.
Also, like, you can get lost in the weeds. You talk to, like, an Alex Jones or something like that, and you got to, like, pull them back. You got to be like, hey, slow down. Bring it back to the common man, because we don't know about all this other, whatever else you're talking about. I imagine that happens all the time.
Yeah, or talking to an Elon Musk. I mean, the amount of topics that guy's brain is, like, processing at one time.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, trying to keep a guy like that on track.
No doubt.
But yeah, Alex Jones is
that'd be a real one, dude.
The thing about him is like I used to think like, this guy's quite the kook, and now I'm not so sure there's anything that he would say today that I wouldn't be like, that sounds crazy, but it's probably
our
true.
Government. There is no
that guy has proven to be mostly right.
Yep,
which is
it's pretty wild, dude.
I told you earlier, if that guy's 50% right, it's concerning.
It is.
And I'm pretty sure he's way more than 50% right.
Yeah. I think he's tapping into
like
stuff
80.
And that's wild to say.
Yeah.
Well, the problem with him is like the old, like, it's the, he'll say 15 things that make a complete, utter sense. And you're like, wow, dude, that's crazy. And then he'll follow it up with like, and I know because the aliens, when they abducted me, told me
there's a flyer in there.
You're like, well, I just ruined everything you ever said, man. You just screwed it all up.
Yeah. No, that's there's a few guys on there once in a while where it's like, but you have to sort through. There's some real geniuses also that I think what makes them geniuses is there's also just a little bit of craziness in there.
Yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that 90% of what they talk about isn't brilliant.
No, for sure. Also, there's like a whole handful of people that I call it like the podcast circuit, because you'll see certain guys that seem to make the rounds and stuff like that. And eventually you're tired of hearing, like, that's what I'm afraid of with me. I'm like, I can tell this story a couple of times, and then people are going to be like, he's going to be like, I'm partners with Joe Rogan and Cam, whatever.
Yeah, like so Brandon and I talked about this kind of early when we were launching the MKC stuff, and Brandon would repost some stuff or talk about like similar stuff that he had put on our Instagram or whatever early on, and it'd be like, hey, you just posted that like 3 months ago, and he's like, yeah, we have 25,000 new followers. Like, there's, and also like, just because you go on a couple different podcasts, there's going to be a small cross section that are crossovers, but
for sure.
Well, even myself, like if I listen to Rogan and Sean Ryan and Andy Stumpf and Tucker, right? But I don't have enough time to keep up with all of them on all of their podcasts. So a guy might have gone on 2 of the 3, and I only heard it once. You know?
For sure.
And there's so many new people listening all the time.
Yeah, that's true. And there's also guys that should be running that circuit. I mean, I like him or not, like Tim Kennedy and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he's in, but there's 15 things going on in that guy's head and life.
That dude
all day, every day. So
and
we can go get on every week and have something new and cool to talk about. And
that's a busy guy. I mean, we're both friends with him, and it's crazy. Like since the inauguration, I talked to him the other day, and I was like, "Do you have an apartment in DC yet?"
It's
like,
got to be brutal.
He's heading up there every month for like a week a month.
No, he's staying a week. Yeah. I'm working out with him, like I said, a couple days a week, and said, he's gone. He'll be gone. And I don't know how he makes time, but he does. I will say this. He's a great dad.
Yeah.
He, I guess it was last week, man. Kids were out of school, and he called me and was like, hey, we were working out the day before, and he was like, hey, I'm going to bring his older boy to the boxing gym the next day. And Brendan Schaub was going to bring his, I think he had a 9-year-old. And then I was like, well, I'll bring my 10-year-old. Well, we had 4 of these boys.
Yeah.
And they're just up there boxing and doing their thing. And then Tim's got him in the ring, like cockfighting, like little freaking 10-year-old fights.
That's awesome.
But it was cool. I mean, but I'm like, how does, like, you think he doesn't have time to be a family man, but then he's pulling his son into what he's doing. He's working out with him. He's going, we all go eat tacos afterwards and stuff. So,
well, I think whether it's what Tim's into, what I'm into, what you're into, like we're all doing some things that are like kind of out of the ordinary as far as like a normal 8 to 5 deal.
Yeah.
And there's some disadvantages. Like there's definitely time spent on the road, a lot of time spent in meetings, and a lot of missed family time, but there's also opportunities that we all have to involve in our families in some really cool stuff, whether it's a hunt or, whether it's you taking your boy to dinner with, somebody freaking famous UFC fighter, right?
For sure. Yeah.
There's some neat things that,
there really is.
It's like there's trade-offs for sure, and there's some missed time, but there's also some really cool.
Yeah, that's true. Stuff. I mean, there is some cool stuff, and he thought it was super cool. I mean, my son, that's what I mean by that. I had showed him, Tim Kennedy fought. He was a UFC fighter. Yeah. He's a board, all this other stuff, but UFC fighter. And my son was like,
you get to go learn from that guy.
We're going to go box with that guy in a gym. And ate up with it, man. Now he's all in. So
that's
cool.
That's super cool. Dude, what's it like working out with Kennedy? Is he just
it's what you
beat the hell out of you?
It's a bro fest. So full disclosure, everybody there's a stud. I am in sort of straight survival mode. I go in there and I'm just like, just get through this 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is.
I don't think they're going to actually kill me.
I don't think they will, but I will definitely, like, we wear the little heart monitor things, and I'm looking up there, and they're all cruising.
Is there an alarm going off on yours?
They're all cruising at like 75% effort, and mine's at like 92, and my heart rate's at like 160, and I'm like, hey, Tyler's going to need to take it down a notch. Yeah. But
no, that's cool.
You get there, I guess.
Well, dude, you're looking slimmer. I mean,
we're trying.
It's working for sure.
We're trying.
It is amazing how there is something about, like, if you actually go to the gym, like, it does work.
My biggest deal, and this isn't like Socrates here, but like the accountability thing. I never had the accountability thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I could go get a gym membership, and I can make every single excuse. It's kind of like shooting my bow.
I'm the same way.
In reality, I own a bow shop, and my range, I can walk out of my office, take 15 steps, and I'm in front of a shooting range.
Right.
But yet people will be like, well, how often do you shoot your bow? And I'm like, I haven't shot since March. I don't have time to shoot. I'm just It's the same deal, though. If I don't have accountability or something that keeps me motivated to keep going and doing that, I find every excuse not to, man.
And I've been the worst lately, and I have to get going because I have a goat hunt in August. But I mean, I literally have a home gym in my basement, and my wife's down there every single day. But it was weird when I started dating her. She was teaching classes actually in town, and there was a group of people that she had that were doing. She was an instructor for these classes, and there's just something about going to a class or a group deal where they're all doing something and like having a guy next to you that you might not even know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's either like you look at that guy and you're like, oh, I can't let that fat piece of shit beat me.
That guy's not going to do more than me.
Like he's an animal and I just can't let him lap me. Mm-hmm. Right. Like whatever it is, you set like these artificial targets in your brain of what make you feel like you're not a terrible human.
Well, and you see all this stuff too. It's like the hardest thing is just getting to the gym. Like once you're in the gym, you never feel bad about leaving a workout. Like you're never like, hey, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
No,
you're always better for it. So
to me, the hardest part is just getting back started and getting past.
It's tough
because I'm so it's probably good my thoughts aren't like posted out for people to read about myself when I started in the gym, and I'm just like, you are the biggest piece of shit. Like,
you fat.
Like, yeah. Should you just give up and just start eating cake and just
call it in?
Just call
we
it
had a good 45-year run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my thoughts are not like, oh, you're doing good. Like
you're a stud.
No, it's just like, how did you let yourself get this bad?
My other thing is I've been doing this probably 2 or 3 months now, and I've lost some weight. And you still look at yourself with a shirt off, and they're like, "You fat tub of lard, man! What are you doing here, man?" So that's just
Well, the problem is too, you and I have so many friends that are such high performers.
Oh,
like we're around.
Yeah.
I mean, the people
the elite.
Yeah, we're around elite people.
No doubt.
And I just go home and I'm like, I can make a knife decent.
Double pizza sounds good.
Yeah.
Sold some bows today. I deserve a steak.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's cool you're doing that with those guys. And, yeah, Tim's a freaking
it is cool.
monster. But
it's good.
It's cool because you have Austin just has this incredible group of people now down there. I mean, what has... So for people that don't know, we dove into this, but you own Archery Country in Austin. It's a big bow shop down there. You're also a taxidermist. You and your wife run this taxidermy studio next door, but it sounds like you're kind of phasing that out a little bit.
Trying to, for sure.
Because Archery Country's blowing up. But what was it actually Joe coming to Austin that changed it? Or like, when did you, because you've been down there your whole life, right?
Whole life, born and raised.
When did you start seeing big changes in Austin?
So I would say that, like the COVID timeframe and all that stuff. It was crazy because you had guys like Joe's and Peter Attia's and these guys that kind of had big platforms and big stuff, and they were just like, I'm over it. I can't do the world as it stands now.
Yeah.
Which it was weird because I never really thought of that as a good thing. To me, it was just there's more Californians moving in, and that's where it starts and stops. You're like,
right.
Yeah, another Californian. Where I really noticed it was like, so around that time frame was when like Tesla was moving in, and I can speak personally for like my neighborhood where I live because I live right in the belly of the beast, man. I'm in the middle of Austin, and I bought this house for $240,000 back in 2011 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's probably pushing $1 million or whatever. That's not because it's nice. That's not because it's anything. It's just because it's in the middle of Austin. But when you talk to other people, they were like, well, when Tesla moved into Austin, and this is just one example, the deal that they struck is I'm sure you're doing it with your new building. So the city was like, well, we want to gather most of that tax money. So the city of Austin said Travis County needs to get 75% of your workers, which means they needed to be Travis County residents. And that way they garner the cash, the money from the taxes. Well, as you're coming in on the toll road from Tesla, my neighborhood is the first neighborhood with $1 million homes in it.
Oh.
And so we were the closest place to have it. So all of a sudden there was this boom in my neighborhood in like 2020. And I'm like, what? I don't understand what's happening. 2021. And it all cleared up one day because they were selling the house 2 doors down from us for like $1.6 million. And the guy was like, yeah, it's all these California Tesla execs. They're working at Tesla, but they wanted to go out towards Bastrop and buy 5 acres and build their dream home on there. But 75% has got to be Travis County. So they're making all the execs live in Austin.
So Tesla's actually telling you, like, you have to live.
Yeah, Tesla's like hiring for that. That's like a specification. Like that.
Wow.
They signed with the city saying, yeah, if you let us build here and give us these tax breaks and all this stuff, we'll make sure.
Oh, wow.
75% of our workforce, I think that was the number, is a Travis County resident. So you're gathering property taxes off of them and all the, all the other tax stuff. So anyway, that happened in our neighborhood. And I was like, man, I know that's going on everywhere because Austin is such a hub now. It was always kind of a second Silicon Valley, but not like it is now.
Yeah.
Like now there's Amazon, like all of these big places are coming there.
Yeah.
It's just, it's here. It's Austin is the spot, it seems like.
Well, and then for Archery Country specifically, it definitely seems like Joe's influence on just the amount of like archery hunting people, and also archery hunting, I don't know if you want to call them celebrities, but definitely like archery hunting people that are fairly well known, like moving to that area
for sure.
And then him getting people into it, the other comedians, and then just whether it's friends, restaurateurs, business owners.
It's also crazy the influence, because I've talked about this with other people before. I actually was talking to someone at the ATA about this, because I was like, y'all all owe Joe like whatever he wants. Buy him an elk hunt on the most expensive ranch in the world.
You're talking the industry.
The industry,
yes,
in general, owes
agree.
it all to Joe. Like, there's no other influencer. Cam, all those guys are huge influencers in our space, but he brought in the most from outside of the space.
I've said that I agree 100%. Like, we see so many of these different ballot initiatives, you know, whether it's trying to get rid of black bear hunting, spring hunting in Washington, or the wolf thing in Colorado. And, you know, there's definitely been some that have been lost, but there's been some that have been won for sure too.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't know what the landscape would look like today or 10 years from now without that voice, because I don't know if any of these things would have been won.
You couldn't get in.
And then the amount of people that have been added to, I would say, casual archers who get a bow, because you can also shoot your bow in your backyard in a neighborhood.
No doubt.
You know, and you can't do that with a gun. So the casual archery community, the people who, you know, through Joe, they find Cam or Remy Warren or these other people that Joe's had on his podcast.
Yep.
And then they start to learn how to hunt, you know, and they start like doing more. And the next thing you know, they're showing up in Montana to do an antelope hunt.
They're here for an antelope
elk hunt.
Yeah.
And it's an immeasurable but absolutely real impact on the industry.
Yeah, it's not. It is for sure on the industry, but also just I can show you. I can tell you like places in general in Austin. So like Joe opened the mothership there.
Right.
Well, I've got probably, I would say, if you ask my guys at the shop, at least 1 or 2 days a week, there's guys that come in and they're there for no other reason. They don't even shoot a bow, or they do and they're new to it, but they just need to get an Archery Country shirt and hat or something like that. And all they're doing is they planned a 100% guys weekend around a Joe Rogan, what they hear on Joe Rogan. So they got to eat at Terry Black's barbecue. They got to go to
Daidu or something.
Yeah, they got to go find us. They got to go to the mothership. And that, it all hinges on like one of those things. So they're like, all right, well, we got tickets to the mothership. So now let's book the flights and let's plan on these restaurants and let's do this. And it's all Joe Rogan centric, which is crazy to believe that one person has that much influence. But also it's wild that it just happened. I mean, it's one of those deals. Like I'm amazed every time I do it, because I'm like, I don't know that I place that much wealth in anything anybody else says. Like I don't know that I've ever heard a podcast and be like, well, now I'm going to go take a weekend out of my life and I'm going to go just travel that little circuit of his restaurants and his stuff.
It's such an impact, and it's you know, it's. I've heard people say like, oh, I wish you'd quit talking about it because there's a lot of people at the trailhead now and some of this stuff. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword because, for sure, it's driving more people into the woods and whatnot. But to be honest, the only way we're going to actually keep this as a way of life is to have their strength in numbers.
Yeah, there is.
You even look at what's happening with the public land sale initiative happening right now, right? And I actually haven't seen Joe talk about it, but like Cam is super vocal. I mean, daily he's posting about it right now. You know, Meat Eater's posting about it. You know, Remy. It's actually screenshotted. I might try to find this because I actually found it interesting. Last night, I screenshotted a poll on a. Yeah, I don't know whose Instagram page this was actually on. It was somebody pretty influential. He has a pretty big following. And he posted a poll on his Instagram about this federal land deal. Yep. And he posted a poll, and the one answer was, yes, we need more. We need to build more public housing. The other one was, no, we need to preserve and conserve our land. 96. There's 11,000 responses, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Cool. 96% were we need to preserve our public land. 96 to 4.
Yeah,
like,
that's a lot, dude.
it's interesting. It's one of the only issues I've seen that is so bipartisan. I don't care if you're the most liberal tree hugger,
for sure,
bird watcher guy, chain yourself to trees, psychopath,
no doubt,
or the most hardcore hunt everything guy. And it's everybody. But Joe's influence, even on all those people that are posting, whether it's Meat Eater or Cam or us or you or anyone, it's real. And so strength in numbers, when we do have these attacks, whether it's public land or attacks on hunting certain animals, or attacks on access, lengths of seasons, different things, right? Hunting predators. The only way you're going to win that is to have strength in numbers. So if you don't have, that's honestly why like we got a little hate when we took like Natalie Eva Marie hunting. It's like this hot blonde gal that was in the WWE. Well, why are you guys taking her? Well, you and I can shoot a hunting video together and involve Leupold or Sig and put out a video and just preach to the same choir. Or, you know,
pull some new people.
You can take a comedian out that Joe connects you with and go on an axis deer hunt or something and post a cool video. Or I can take Natalie and we can post a video, and those two people show it to their millions of followers that are not hunting related demographics.
For sure.
And have a serious impact on like ballot initiatives. And I've always said, like, even if you change somebody from a hard no vote on something to a non-vote, of like, you know what, I've been listening to this Rogan podcast, or I've been watching this WWE chick or some comedian, and like, it doesn't seem so bad. I don't know enough about it. I'm just not going to vote on that issue.
Like, I mean, I kind of feel like that was the election and stuff, you know, like with Trump. Trump goes on Rogan's podcast, and then people are like, oh, maybe he's not the vile animal I made him out. Or
could have been, for sure.
Could have. I don't know if it is or isn't, but
could have pushed him over the top. I mean, after you see, hindsight's 2020, and after you see it all at the very end, you're like, well, maybe Trump would have won anyway. But man, that was the insurance that he needed. And quite honestly, even if Joe would have never had him on and never actually endorsed him, Joe, for the last year, had been so much more kind of right on a lot of the issues that he maybe wasn't before. That I think even without the actual endorsement, he had already swayed a lot of people that listen to it. And, you know, he has said it. You and I have both heard him say it. Like, he's just some fucking meathead, you know, comedian, jiu-jitsu guy, commentator.
Why are you listening to me?
And people are listening to him for their news, but that's how bad news has gotten. And to be honest, I'm one of those guys. Like, I do still feel like I'll listen to some of his podcasts and be like, I don't know about that with what that guy's saying.
For sure.
But I think Joe's good enough at questioning people that there's a lot, whether it's him or Tucker's or Sean Ryan or podcasts are kind of where I go to at least hear stuff, and then I still try to make up my own mind.
Long form, more than just a snippet, a 20 second. Also, like, Joe has a whole, it's funny because in our world, like in Austin, it's a pretty liberal town. It's been known that is that forever. The rest of Texas usually hates us in Austin. Joe gets labeled a conservative, and if you talk to Joe, he's like, I'm not. I mean, I have conservative leanings. I also have liberal leanings. I don't. You can't put me into one box.
He just had Bernie on. I haven't even listened to it yet, but I mean, he just had Bernie on, and he was a big Bernie supporter a couple years ago.
No doubt. No, and it's crazy. I mean, people will say, "Well, how can you support that right-leaning guy?" And I'm like, well, he's really not. I mean, you don't know enough about him. You're basing that off of one.
Well, yeah, when you look at like
his snippet you saw on Instagram or
his
something.
Comments on, you know, drugs stuff and some of the social issues and whatnot, he's still very left on a lot of that stuff. And I saw a deal, and this is not just Joe, but this is just, if you take a guy who was like center left, let's say 10% to the left of center 20 years ago, and he like literally doesn't change a single view that he has, and you look today, he's like 70% to the right of center, for sure. And he never changed a topic that he believed in.
No, I know, it's crazy.
And it's like, well, I don't know that Rogan really moved that far. He's for sure adapted, I think, a few.
Oh, for sure he has.
Topics. But I would sure think as an adult, if you go from, let's say, Rogan at 25 to 55,
For sure.
you're going to evolve as a human. If you're not, well,
and that's my biggest thing. I get asked that all the time with the Austin stuff.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to Austin, everybody will be like, well, you were born and raised here. How come you didn't leave? Because most of the true old school Austinites were like, dude, it's all purple hairs and crazies, and they're out now. They're like, I can't be around it. The reality of that is I'm like, well, the world's constantly changing. Like, you can't just live in a bubble.
Can't run from
you
it.
can go you can move here, and in 10 years, it's probably not going to be the same town.
You just moved here because you didn't know what it was like 20 years ago.
Exactly.
If you saw the changes, you wouldn't move here either.
That's it. Yeah, no, and I mean, Austin is LA. Like, everybody that left LA is coming to Austin because they're like, well, it's kind of like it, but it's not as crazy. Well, that's what's going to happen. Eventually, Austin is going to be super crazy, and people are going to be like, nah, you got to go to wherever.
Yeah, and I feel like Austin's a lot like Missoula. Missoula is known as kind of the liberal hippie whatever area of, I shouldn't say hippie, just more liberal, woke bullshit stuff. Some of the crap that you see, they try to be the Austin or the Seattle of, the West. And
I always hear that stuff, and I'm like, dude, come to, like, I can show you parts of Austin where you'd be like, well, that's a conservative town because Missoula doesn't have jack diddly squat.
Right. But I always say it's really just downtown right around the university.
Yeah.
And it's like the community city council idiots that they have. And it's just activists like center downtown. Yeah. You go a mile from downtown.
Yeah.
And then for the next 50 miles, it's a very conservative area.
That's what I always say about Austin. So I was born and raised there, whatever. At the end of the day, it's still Texas, and Texas is cowboys and all the other stuff. And I'm like, you can take the most purple-haired, thinks they're a cat, whatever they are, you can take that person, and you're one generation removed from a guy who probably hunted for his meals. Right. And shotguns and had no problem with any of that stuff. Like, it's not that crazy to
half his family's probably doing it. He just became a stray.
Yeah, you just went the way of the wild.
Yeah. But when I was down there and we went out and did some hunting, I mean, the minute we leave, say your shop, and we drive 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you start getting outside Austin. It's like hunting farms and ranches, and
no doubt.
It's Texas.
Yeah.
It's just back to being Texas.
For sure.
So it's like whatever. But it's a cool area down there. It's a little hot.
It's freaking
a little
real
toasty.
Hot, dude. I went to the Kalispell Black Rifle yesterday.
Yeah.
And legit, the guy was like, sorry, dude, you came on a really bad day. And it was 79 degrees. And I was like, it was 79 at 6 this morning when I left Austin. I was like, it's 103 right now. Dude,
you walked out on my porch this morning. You were like, it's a little chilly here.
It's freaking cold, man.
Yeah, it was probably 45, 50 degrees.
That's one of the worst days of winter for us. Like, we don't get, if it gets into the 30s, it just all shuts down. They're like, nah, we're out. Shut it down.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nice. It cools down here, but it'll be like up in Red Lodge for Total Archery this weekend. It'll be definitely cooler.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, if you didn't bring a hoodie, you might want to bring one from here.
I'd have to purchase some.
Yeah.
I brought one.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
But no, it's cool to have you up here. We've obviously been down to your place a fair amount, and then been to events and stuff together, but never had you actually come to our neck of the woods. So
yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you doing this. It's cool. I don't think I've ever told this to you, but I feel like I owe you a little debt of gratitude, because when I started this whole journey, which if people don't know, the super short version is right now I'm working on a partnership with Cam Haynes, Joe Rogan, and Evan Hafer.
Yeah.
Paperwork signed. It's
never heard of any of them.
Yeah. Who are those guys? They're all partners now. It's inked. We're finally putting this together on the back end. There was a lot of lawyers and lawyering and stuff it's funny because Cam's got an attorney that's talking to Evan's attorney. Joe's attorney is talking to Evan's attorney. And they're like,
and you're talking to your wife.
Who do you have representing you? And I'm like, I'm a fat taxidermist, dude. What are you talking about? An attorney? I'm like, yeah. So anyway, working on that deal with all those guys. But you probably remember this. We were in Kerrville at the Crazy Guys ranch way back in the day. And I was sitting there bitching about how, like, I'm trying to figure this out. There's some moving parts in the background, and I don't know how to go forward because everybody's willing to throw their 2 cents in on what they think you should do. They also don't know the whole situation and scenario and what I'm looking at with old partners and potential new partners and money and everything else. But you probably remember that. We sat there and told Mexican jail stories and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, literally like, yeah, man, this is where I'm at right now. And that was one of the first times we actually like hung out together. And fast forward to now, which that wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago or something.
Just a couple of years ago.
Yeah. But I mean, it's crazy how life is constantly evolving and changing and all that. So I owe you a debt of gratitude for advice given. Because like I said, back then I was just like, I don't know if there actually is not necessarily an out, but I didn't know how to next chapter what I was trying to do. I knew what I wanted to do with Archery Country as a whole. I didn't know the path to that, number one. And then I also didn't know, there were so many what ifs because I was like, well, I can best laid plans are this, but one partner can look at that and be like, yeah, no, that's not the way I see this going down.
Right.
And then you're right back to square one. Or what I was worried about, once I finally had old partners that were kind of like, hey, I'm willing to entertain this conversation about selling out and you becoming the sole owner and all that stuff. Well, then I'm like, if I tell them it's Joe Rogan, are they going to be like, oh, well, hold on a minute. And my
price just went up.
it drastically spiked overnight.
Maybe I don't want to get out.
It was that kind of stuff. So like I said, best laid plans. But at the time I was seeking advice from counsel from guys that I look up to. Cause like I said, I've got 1,500 guys that'll give me advice, right? But they're also not where I want to be. So I'm like, why would I take, like, I got a guy, I can throw him under the bus. We're not getting along that great anyway now, but I got a taxidermist guy that works for me, and he's the very first one to tell me, well, you know what you should do? He also lives in his daughter's backyard because he can't afford a house, and he's trying to scratch together money to make his car payment every month. And I'm like, you're not who I'm trying to garner my advice from.
Right.
Here, so,
well, and I don't deserve any credit of that. I appreciate that. But what I was in the same spot that you were and are, and I still am in the same spot, right? Like it doesn't really matter how far you go and all this stuff. You still feel like you haven't gotten anywhere. There's so much more. You just learn more that you didn't know.
Sure. Yeah.
And so like a guy like that for me through some of that stuff that I was going through, like early on when we were scaling this, was like with Evan, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd sit around it with Evan a little bit and try to pick his brain without trying to be annoying or make him not ever want to let me be around him again.
Yep.
You know, it's like, okay, I have 10 more questions, but I'm not going to ask
I'm
going
to scale it down to 3.
Yeah. But you know, I kind of look at it like this. It's like, I was thinking about this a while back. It's like seeing a really tall peak, like way off in the distance on the horizon, you know, 40 miles out. You see this tall peak that you know you want to climb and get to, right? And you're on a small mountain 50 miles away, and you don't know how to get there. You don't know what lies between. And so all you do is you kind of drop off your little hill into the timber and you start walking towards that peak, right? Yep. And you make a plan. Like, I'm going to get to this peak. I'm going to walk that ridge. And like, you kind of have this idea, you map it out, you start following it. And then let's say you walk 2 miles and all of a sudden you walk into, and you come up against a freaking giant river in a valley and a cliff on the other side. And you like, well, this is, like you said, like, okay, am I back to square one? And the answer is no, you're still 2 miles closer because you actually started walking. Yeah, it's a great analogy. You are 2 miles. Now, you do have a problem in front of you, right? But every problem is solvable, right? And so it's like, well, I did not expect, but now I'm going to have to take a left and walk a mile that direction, you know, to find a log to cross this thing.
For sure.
And sometimes you might be lost in the woods for a month, walking up and downstream, trying to figure out how you're going to cross this thing. But once you get across it, you know, you're back on the path. And what's funny is I feel like you kind of reach, I feel in like a way I've reached a couple times, like a little bit of that peak that you envisioned. And then you climb up to it and you're like, holy shit, there's another peak that's bigger,
There's way
50 more miles away. Like, well, I want to go to that peak. Right.
For sure.
And you like drop off of it. Right. And sometimes in the middle of that lost little adventure, you come across, a tribesman that lives in the woods that can give you some really good freaking advice.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, damn, that just got me 2 miles closer in a day. Like it took me 2 weeks to go this 2 miles. And I just went 2 miles today.
For sure.
And what so many people don't ever do is drop off the mountain initially to head into the timber. Like they never start walking.
For sure.
Right. And you can what if to death. Like, what if there's a river in the way? And what if there's bears? And what if there's this and that? Right. And so you just stay on your little comfortable knoll. And you never climb the mountain. You know?
No, that's very true.
And I'm proud of what you've done, because you and I did talk about it a few times. And there was a little bit of a time period there where it felt like you were kind of like pacing back and forth on your little knoll. And then finally it was like, piss on it, I'm dropping into the timber.
You just got to grab them and go.
And then in a relatively short amount of time, you've kind of solved like some of those initial issues. And it's super exciting to hear, like, between having somebody like Evan, who's grown a major business, and he hung a freaking AK-47 banner off Wall Street.
Yeah. That's
like,
wild.
You want to talk about like, that's a mountain I would have never, I'd have seen that mountain and been like, I ain't climbing that bitch.
That's not going. I agree.
Like that guy's accomplished some major things with Black Rifle Coffee. Cam having one of the bigger, obviously, voices in the bowhunting community, and then Joe, the largest voice in the world. Maybe besides Donald Trump today.
That's true.
But Joe, being involved and helping, hell, I think every fourth podcast I see an Archery Country hat or shirt on him.
Yeah, no, he's right.
But what I think is super cool, and I know Joe just a little, where he's like your friend, like good friend. But what I think is so cool about Joe is like archery's his passion. Like, he's got a few passions. And archery's one of his biggest passions. And at the other end, the other thing that's really cool is I think with Evan, I'm sure Cam too, but Evan and Joe, like, I'm sure they just want to see Archery Country and you win because you're such a good dude. Right? Like, that's what's super cool for me to see with you is you guys are going to be able to take Archery Country to a place that I don't think an archery shop or company's ever been before.
There's nothing that will be like what we're trying to build out. And part of that reason is because it's kind of never been done before. Like, how do you garner these guys that are this? And I got super lucky. I mean, I've had multiple people come up to me and be like, how'd you do that? Because Joe gets 780 offers a day, I'd imagine, of people being like, hey bro, you want to make millions? I got a path. All you got to do is whatever it is. And the truth of the matter is I didn't. I mean, I didn't go after it that way.
Right.
All you can do is be a cool guy, and it's a shared passion between us. So like, he loves archery, I love archery. I've right place, right time. I mean, it wasn't like the grand scheme.
I was just talking somewhere, and somebody asked me, I was at the Atlanta Blade Show, and a guy asked me for a piece of advice about building his business. And he kind of asked me a really open-ended question. He's like, what's one piece of advice that you could give me, like the best piece of advice to like grow my business? And I'm like, well, like in what way? Like what kind of advice? And he's like, just a piece of advice. And I was like, well, that's pretty open-ended. I said, build relationships. Like
that's the only thing.
That's it.
That's all this guy has.
Like when I started MKC, I had no money, right? And when I went to my first TAC, like we didn't have marketing money for the first couple of years. Right. What you've built is just through being a super genuine good dude and building really good relationships and not expecting anything to come from that. Like the amount of knives early on that I gave away with no ask, like, hey, will you post? Or will you? No, none of that. It's like legitimately some of the very first people I met in that first year, I still consider really good friends. And then just good things will come in. It sounds super cliche, but it's
but I mean, it's the path. I mean, it's the only way. Like I was in the same boat because I'm not college educated. Even when we bought the archery shop, I super believed in it because I was attached to it through my taxidermy business. But the reality is I didn't even have the money to buy in back then.
Yeah.
I was the sweat equity guy. I was willing to work a couple years for no pay and then take a tiny pay and just try and build something out of just, I think I can do it. And that was what it was. And I never got rid of the taxidermy because I was like, that's how we're paying bills. That's how my kids are eating. Like,
right.
It's not an option to get rid of that. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball because they're just like, it's too hard. It's easier to do this. But if you believe in it and you're willing to struggle a little bit and willing to put in a couple years, but a lot of people think like 2 years is that, I don't have 2 years to dedicate to something. Well, actually you do. If you want to.
Yeah.
If you want it bad enough, you do.
Yeah.
You can make time for it. You can do any of that stuff. I do that every day. I'm like, dude, I don't have time to spend with my kids. And then I come home a little early. They help me, throw steaks on the grill, and I throw the football while I'm searing each side. And then we, whatever. You do. You have time. You can make time. Yeah. You can always figure it out. So.
Yeah, it's and the other piece of that besides build relationships is have a passion, right? And like you will do that if you're actually passionate. Like you were very obviously passionate about what you're doing, right? Yep. Between hunting, the taxidermy stuff, and archery. Yeah, you had a passion, and if you really have a passion, then it doesn't. Even when it's not paying and not going well in the beginning, it's still you're passionate about. It's fun. Yeah, it's what you enjoy.
For sure. Yeah. And it doesn't feel like work. It's the old adage, like you'll never work if you're doing something you
right.
Whatever.
Never work a day in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to, it's one of those deals for me, at least. I credit the whole deal, like going back to what you originally said, you're building relationships and all that stuff. That's all I had to lean on because I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have the retail store experience like you're experiencing right now. But I'm also like, I'm also a smart guy. You got to have a little confidence in yourself. So I'm like, I'm not a complete idiot. Right. Believe me, there have been some times where I've been like, dude, I am a complete idiot. I went like one of our, probably the first 3 years of Archery Country. In my mind, I was like, dude, we are selling these bows like they are hotcakes. And so I order 50. My guy calls me. I'm trying to flex a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? Throw another 50 in right at the end of buying season. I know I'll sell them. And if I don't, I can discount them a little bit. Well, we go into the end of the year with like 100 Matthews bows over. And I'm like, oh, no. And so we got to pay for these things. They give you a 3-month, window to pay and all that. So I had to like tuck my tail and go talk to Brendan and Alan and be like, all right, guys, so here was my rationale at the time. Here's why I was thinking this. Turns out I'm retarded. So let's, I'm going to need to throw some more money in the account. I can go try and drum that up if y'all don't want to do it. We figured it all out and all that stuff. But my point to that is like, we're all
lessons learned
to make it. Yeah. Like I'm sure there's been plenty of times where you building this empire, it's same deal. You're sitting there saying, dude, I don't know, but let's just do this. And
well, I think actually part of our success, I don't think this all would have gone the way it went if I had launched this back when I registered the name, say when I was 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
One, I would have tried to have done everything myself, so I wouldn't have trusted like Brandon to do what he's doing or Andrew with my director of operations.
Yep.
So I would have tried to do too much myself, and I think I would have been way less apt to admit like when I either didn't know something or was wrong.
Sure.
Where I've had enough, I think, life where it's just like
I definitely know I'm not the smartest. And you're like, all right, well.
I'm smart enough to know that I'm not the smartest in the room, and so I'm going to go try to find the smartest
for sure,
and put them around me and help build something
for
right,
sure.
and share in some of the success with that,
For
and
sure.
so it's actually one of our interview questions. Like we ask people, tell us about a time where professionally, because I used to phrase it, tell us about a time that you've just really abjectly failed, and people will be like, so like in my personal life, and I'm like, no, hold on.
Not talking about the babysitter.
We don't need to do that. So let's keep it on the professional side, right? And it's amazing how sometimes people will sit there in front of you and just be like, time I failed, and they're just like,
oh, dude,
I don't like, I don't know, like
that's crazy.
Like one time, this guy
I
that
could
I
rattle off.
yeah, and even sometimes they'll give an example of basically like a time that someone that they managed failed, and like, yeah, you know, Tyler was doing this for me, and he kind of failed this, and it kind of made me look bad, and he was my guy, so it was kind of my fault, and it's like, you just pretty much told me Tyler failed. Like, I want to know when you failed.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and then you have the right character sit in front of you, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, which time?
Which story you want to hear? Because
here's one from last week.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but we ask him like, and tell us what you learned from it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, that deal with what you're talking about, like, okay, you learn about your ordering and gambling and finances, and there's a lot.
No, and I think it goes back to kind of what we were talking about on the porch this morning when you're cooking breakfast. It's like, if you're going to sit there and pretend like you've never had any of that stuff happen, or like you've got it all figured out, well, you're lying to yourself.
Right.
We've like, if you're in the business world, it doesn't matter if you're selling cars. Mm-hmm. You could have said the wrong thing that made some housewife be like, screw this guy, we're going to the Honda dealership or whatever.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Like, everything is trial and error. Like, so it takes a certain kind of person to be like, hey man, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. Right. So like you said, you put the right people in that place, or you go seek advice, which for you at the time, a couple of years ago, you were building something I was looking up to. And I'm like, well, hey, I got a couple questions because I'm trying to do this, but I don't have there's not a clear path. And I don't really know what I'm jumping into. If I just, like you said, jump off the cliff and go start down the trail. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and and then you have people that it's like, well, you're lucky. Like, not all of us have Joe Rogan as a friend, or not all of us are going to have. It's like, you also have to do the work, right? So like, if Joe does start chatting about Archery Country, or Cam does, or whatever, you also have to execute. And it's like with what we've built and some of the cool things that we've had happen along the way. You also have to know how to capitalize behind the scenes, how to execute. You have to provide quality. Yep. Like, there's a lot more to running business.
There's so much more. And that's what I credit, like with us and the Joe Rogan thing. At the end of the day, what had happened to start our deal was a long time ago. I basically, when Joe first came to Austin, I was like, hey, Archery Country is a safe space. Yep. I was like, I'm never going to tweet that you're here. I'm never going to say home of Joe Rogan's bow shop. I'm never going to sell Rogan Haynes shirts. I'm not, you know what I mean? Right. I was like, look, man, here's my cell. Show up before, after hours. Like, I'll accommodate, because I know how hard it is for you to be in public.
Right.
You've already got bodyguards with you. That's weird enough in and of itself. They don't really want to be there. It's weird for them. And I'm like,
these guys do at one point just want to have a couple hours where they can just be a normal dude.
Yeah. I'd imagine so. I mean,
would think so.
I don't know how you wouldn't be that way, but but anyway, like I said, I had kind of come to the conclusion with Joe that I didn't know what the path was, but I was just like, I never asked him like, you should buy in on this deal.
No,
he had kind of poked at it. I had said, well, maybe that's an option, and then we went back and forth for a couple of years, and then I remember you
even talking to me a little about this stuff a couple of years ago, and and you were like, well, Joe's expressed some interest, but I don't. I'm kind of ready to do it, but I don't want to like go like ask him. And, and I was kind of like, well, dude, like at this point, Joe's your friend. And he said it, like, you should go. But I get what you were also wanting to do it the right way and have and earn, whether it's his respect or anyone else's.
Yeah. And that was my problem. So I had the old partners, and I was like, damned if I did. I was like, I'm not gonna ruin those friendships. And I thought maybe if it happens, then maybe it happens. I'm gonna do everything in my power to not try and let that happen, because they're both swingers in Austin. They both are guys that swing a big stick. They're in the same friend circles,
right?
And I was like, they're friends of mine still. Like,
and they did help you get Archery Country to where
they did. They're responsible for
helping
2/3 of this when we started. I mean, the reality is that they could have at the start been like, yeah, you have that idea to buy those extra 50 bows, but it's my money. Right. And I'm not cool with it. So they could have been micromanaging me and being like, yeah, I'm out, dude. You're making terrible decisions. Whether I am or aren't, it's neither here nor there.
Right.
It's whatever. But I just know for me personally, like, I was like, there's so many just like you said, there's so many like cricks in the road where you're just like, dude, now what? Because it was like, all right, well, I got these partners talked into it. Now I got to talk these guys into it. Are they going to hear the price and be like, I bet you would like that much money for it or whatever? Or are they going to be like, that's cheap. I'll buy it all today or whatever. And then, what's the path? There is no clear any of that stuff. Yeah. It was literally a God thing, and I, right place, right time.
Yep.
I said my prayers over it, and I'm like, if it happens, it happens. And literally my stuff was just, if it's meant to happen, then let it happen.
Yeah,
if
but I had also talked to you.
Shut the doors. And
you had also told me back then that it didn't matter really if Cam or Joe or anyone else, Evan, was going to be involved in it. You were going to
for it.
You were going to buy them out and do it on your own. I mean, you were seeking the business loans. And,
we were. Yeah. No,
so to your credit, this was kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter what Joe does.
I was all in.
I'm going to do this, and I want to build this business. Like we had those talks, and this is kind of letting people a little bit behind the scenes. But
sure,
that's another good example, though, for people that are like, it's like, also don't set yourself so hard on that one peak in front of you.
Yeah,
that maybe the peak right over here is the one you should be aiming for, or keep both as an option and like. I'm just going to start climbing and getting closer and then decide when we get closer where it ends up. Yeah. And, you were headed down that path of buying it all out yourself. And then,
I was. Yeah, no.
Joe finds out and bam, now you guys are, Joe and Evan.
Do you remember we got hung in Salt Lake at the TAC and we had dinner with Evan that night? And I think that night Evan was kind of like, well, shoot, dude, I believe in you. Like, if it's if it's not over $1 million, like come see me. We can figure figure that out. And I'm like, well, that's wild because I'm not that great of friends with Evan. I'm friends with him, but not great. We're not homies that hang out and whatever. And it's a substantial amount of money. But I think a lot of it is just like you said. It's building relationships, holding those relationships because you can ruin those relationships. We talked about people this morning that did that, but you can legit go in and overstep your bounds. And luckily I've always been pretty good at reading people on that stuff.
Yeah.
To the extent that I was like, I know if I come to Joe one more time and I'm like, hey, I got a great idea for this. Well, eventually he's going to be like, dude, I'm tired of his great ideas.
Right.
I'm not taking his texts anymore.
You and the other 100 people today.
Yeah. Like I'm out, dude. I don't want to deal with that. So
but they're also good at reading people. Guys like Joe, Evan, Cam, people like that, Bert Soren, they've all been around a while and they've read a lot of people. And what they see too is like Joe knows your whole story now. Evan knows it.
Yeah.
You see a guy that's been like, oh, this isn't a flash in the pan. Like, oh, this guy just wants to start an archery shop and then use my name to build it. Like, no, this guy's been building this and it's been growing for freaking over a decade.
And I can prove it. Yep.
And he's going to go off and do it no matter what. And so, you're easy for them to buy into and partner up because they also know like when they attach their name to something, that's a big deal. Like they have to trust that you're going to run the business in a way that reflects good upon them.
And also, I mean, you're exactly right. But also like I think about this all the time because I'm like, if Joe and Cam and Evan were to get together behind closed doors and be like, let's create Joe Rogan's archery world. Well, they don't need me. They could go rent a building and be like, hey, here's Joe Rogan's archery world, and now we're going to sell shirts and or whatever it is. They could do that.
Yeah.
They bought in because they believed in me. And this is what me and my wife had talked about because my wife was like, you're not giving yourself the credit due for building these relationships and keeping them and being cool and all that stuff because there's plenty of people that want to be partners with them and there's no path and they wouldn't do it on a bet because they're like, that guy's crazy. I don't want to listen to his freaking stories.
They don't want to be Botex.
No.
They don't want to run the day to day.
They don't want anything to do with any of that.
Yeah, like Tyler, don't call us and bug us with stupid questions. Like figure it out.
Thinking about ordering 30 sites.
But like you said, they could go find any number of 100 archery fan followers to try to run a bow shop, and those guys are screwed up all day long.
Yep.
They know you're a professional in that space.
Well, and that's what my wife said. She was like, you're selling yourself short. She's like, they're buying into you because at the end of the day, Archery Country is just a shop. Mm-hmm. And she was like, they're believing in what you've already built, which is my team of guys that allow me to do cool stuff like this. I got
Yep.
Jordan, Tank, and Tommy, and Andy, and Chase. Like, I got a bunch of studs at the shop
Yep.
that allow me to come jack around and be like, oh, wow, we had a good day today. That's
Right.
awesome. Well,
Yep.
let's go eat a steak.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff.
And that's such a cool feeling, because I know yesterday we're driving and you're like, oh, we did X today. And it's like, that was a good day. And it's like, and it's cool because, like, when you have a good team like you have, I have a good team where if I'm down at Archery Country for a weekend and a drop goes off and we get it shipped, right, or you're up here and they have a good day in the shop, you can trust that those guys are going to help.
Sure.
And but that helps you. A lot of times people think like, oh, you're just going down to Archery Country or you're going to Nashville or doing something and you're just having fun. It's like, well, it's fun, but you are still networking and like you're trying to grow that next phase of the business.
No doubt.
And it's like, yeah, you're having a good time coming to Montana, but throughout this whole entire TAC weekend, you're trying to build the relationships that
building community
going to help you climb that next mountain.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you have to lean on. I mean, at the end of the day, you know that. You collab with people that you want to collab with. And you know, it's all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, it's super exciting. Cool. So you think like this fall you'll kick some stuff off?
I think that's the plan. That's the goal, at least. We're working towards it. Honestly, I would have told you summer if you would ask me back at the end of last year. And just like I said, loggers were loggering, and I get it. We were talking about it, and when you talk to these guys, they're like, "Look, man." The best analogy I heard was Joe's a Walmart. So they were like, he will go slip and fall.
Right.
Someone will go slip and fall to try and sue Walmart for whatever. And he was like, the attorneys were like, if you don't think someone's not going to shoot themselves in the top of the foot and be like, I'm suing Joe Rogan for $80 million. And all they're hoping is that Joe's like, here's $100,000, go away.
No, you got to put those layers of protection in. Yeah. And you honestly even have to do that. Like us, we've done that stuff with our business. We're doing that with our retail store. It's the unfortunate litigation world we live in today. And then especially when you have a name like that and whatnot. So
3 names. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's unfortunately we spend more time than we want talking about all these stupid what if scenarios that lawyers call up and they're like, well, what if this? And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, like, can we just make knives?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that stuff does take time, but it'll be cool to see you guys, what you launch. And do you guys, like right now, just today, do you guys have a website people can go order stuff on?
So AustinArcheryCountry.com. That's what it is for now. I'm sure it's going to change. I know we're building out a bunch of website stuff in the background, and there's a lot of moving parts there, but it's little stuff. It's a couple shirts, a couple hats. It's what I have a lot of stock in because I was always paranoid I was going to put, I'm going to have 12 hats in back stock. I put them online. We sell 38 that day.
Yeah.
And then I'm mad scrambling or returning people's money and, refund, trying to figure all that stuff out. So I've kept it pretty plain Jane for now. But the reality is it's coming. We'll have a lot cooler stuff. We'll make some more cool announcements as it gets a little closer and stuff like that. But the reality is stuff is moving now, which has been the hardest part of this whole deal is, every time I thought, all right, well, we got something kind of inked now, things should start picking up a little bit. Well, then you're in an operating agreement or then you're in a pick your poison. Yeah, we've in 50 different things.
Been there on all that. And but it is cool too because when people come to Austin, I wish we had an archery shop like that. We have a really, really tiny one here, but you guys have so much heat leading up to hunting season that you guys get a ton of people that come in and shoot there. You have an indoor range, like a nice big indoor range. And then it's becoming kind of a destination. Like you say, if people kind of want to do the Austin tour, go eat at Terry Black's.
Rogan thing is real, dude.
Go to the club and go check out the archery shop.
For sure.
And I can see that, and some of the things you've talked about down the road becoming even, like you guys purposely build that out as even more of a destination for tourists to come. And
I think it's possible. And that'll be part of what's cool. It's the same thing you're doing. There'll probably be a Black Rifle Coffee element to it, which will be like a hangout area, but then you'll have a bunch of swag you can go to, kind of like Kalispell and stuff like that. Like there's some cool stuff we can do. I don't know what that looks like. I don't have the money to play in that world. Those guys do.
Right.
And also I think I still think I get caught in this like smaller picture stuff where Evan and them don't think like that.
Right.
And like, to me, I'll suffice it by saying this. In my mind, I'm like, well, I really hope this works. And the difference in me and those guys is they don't, there's no
it's
hoping.
going to work.
Like when Joe puts his mind to something, he's like, well, I don't hope it's going to work. It's going to work. Like, we're going to make it work. I think Evan's a lot the same way. I don't think he's like, well, let's just throw some money at this and hope it pans out.
Yeah.
They know it's going to work. And that's what I don't, it's not that I struggle with it, but it's one of those deals where it's like, I need to adopt that mentality more, because I'm still in the like.
Well, but that confidence comes from climbing that mountain several times.
No doubt.
They've climbed it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like,
sure.
well, if you've never been to the top of Mount McKinley,
exactly.
Once you've been up there, you're like, I can go back.
And also, they're not in like the day-to-day stuff that I'm in. And there's days when I'm like, my employees are arguing, or there's something like, I'm like, why is he in a bad mood? What's going on with this? Or I'm like, man, we got a customer that's irate, and the customer's always right, but maybe not this time, because I'm ready to knock this guy's teeth out. Like, it's weird. That's all stuff they don't see. They're not dealing with that stuff. They're just looking at it and saying, man, Archery Country, that's a cool logo. Let's put that on some shirts and hats. And I'm like, God, dude.
Well, and it's a cool name, because if you drop, especially also if you drop the Austin part off and it's just Archery Country, you can wear that shirt. That can be Montana, it can be Idaho, it can be Nebraska. It doesn't matter. You're in Archery Country.
Yep.
Like, it's all Archery Country.
Yeah, no
so
doubt.
it's a really neat, it's a really neat,
it is
kind of family and feel.
No, it is. It's really cool. And I take no credit for that. That was started by some old guy in Austin back in the 70s.
Well, good for him.
80s.
But the one thing I think people need to remember the most about Archery Country, like, the hats, the T-shirts, the Rogan, the cam, all the kind of the marketing stuff that can be coming. But at the end of the day, it's like the best place to actually go get your bow worked on. And that's the thing I think people need to remember. Like, there's all like this hype and stuff that might come with some of the things coming.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's also substance there.
Yeah.
And, I know there's people that will hop on a plane and fly down just to get their new bow set up. It costs them a $500 plane ticket and a night in a hotel room.
Yep.
But if that means that their bow's set up correctly, they're dialed, and then they head home.
We get that all the time. I mean, and maybe not the flight stuff. We do get that stuff. But, man, the reality is like, you talk to some of these guys, and they're just like, I don't know who to trust with it. And they're like, but here's what I do know. I do know that I paid $25,000 for this goat hunt in one of the stands, and they're like, I'm going to have $35,000 in this, and I don't want to trust it to a guy who's watching Dudley videos trying to tie a D-loop. Like, I can't do that. So they come in and they watch my guys, and they're just like, well, these guys, they do it in their sleep. So.
Yeah, and that there is that Rogan effect too. From take away the marketing side of it, just like, as serious as that dude is about archery, if that's where he chooses to get his bow worked on,
for sure,
like, well, there's some credibility right there.
No doubt.
Like, take away all the podcast stuff and just the who he is. Just there's that, and I will say, like, the Bowtech thing is super, super tough, because there's a lot of great shops all over the country. The problem is, you just don't know when you walk in. Like, the owner of the shop can be an absolute wizard, one of the best in the country at working on a bow, and have 2 or 3 really great guys, and then have hired 2 or 3 summer help guys that don't know shit. And when you're a customer, it's really tough walking in, because you can't see that.
We dealt with that a lot. That's one of the things that I spent the first 4 years just building out with the team that I have now. I've had the same guys for a really long time. What I found was there was that like gun counter culture where, like, it could be the best Bowtech in the world. The guys can tie D-loops in his sleep. He tunes bows better than anybody, shorter amount of time, and all that stuff. He can be a total douche, and nobody wants to deal with that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he can have a terrible personality. He can just be a crotchety old guy that's tired of dealing with customers because he's been doing it for 40 years.
Yeah.
So you had to weed that stuff out too, because you were like,
there is a customer service part of this.
It is customer service.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I prime example, I had some guys like that. I had a guy that was one of the best in the world at teching, but also sucked in customer service.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd look at your car and be like, nah, that guy's driving a Datsun, dude. I'll be in the office. Y'all take this guy. And you're like, well, you don't know. In Austin, you really don't know. Like,
no.
It can be a homeless-looking dude that's a tech billionaire. That just
that's one of the things I've told our team downstairs over and over. I learned that making high-end custom knives. You have a $3,000 or $4,000 knife on your table, and you have a guy walk up to your table in New York City at a show that I was at in Times Square, and he smells like pee, right, and looks like a absolute homeless person. Yeah, and the guy asks you a bunch of questions, and you're kind of annoyingly like, I wish this guy'd move on so that stockbroker over there would come over and buy it. And all of a sudden the guy's like, all right, I'll take those 3, and opens up his bag, and his bag's full of cash.
No doubt.
And, you do learn real fast. Like, the guy dressed like a stockbroker there might not be.
You can't. I tell my guys that all the time. And I had years ago, it was a funny scenario that actually played out. I had a guy who was related. He was one of the top dogs at Wells Fargo. Big high roller. And this was a couple of years ago. This was 22, 23, something like that. He drives a 2016 Ford F-150. A red Ferrari pulls up next to it, and they're both in front of the shop. There's a red Ferrari. There's a 40-year-old dude that's pressed suit, all of that stuff. And I knew both of them really well, knew both of them. And I was like, hey, man, quick just lesson in life right here. I was like, that guy in the red Ferrari that looks like he's got way more money than that other guy over there, that guy would burn all of his money and everything to be where that other guy is.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, I've been to that other guy's ranch, the guy driving the 16 F-150.
Yeah.
I've seen his 5,000 acre ranch, and I've been to his other house in Vail. It's that way. And it was a lesson in, like, just don't judge a book by its cover.
You can't.
And we had that growing up because I don't know if you've ever seen them. There's a restaurant called Chewy's, Mexican restaurant. They were started in Austin. So my dad was really good friends with the Zapp and Young, the 2 guys that started Chewy's. Make a long story short, I knew him growing up. I didn't know him well, but I just knew of them and all that stuff. Well, Zapp Young drove a VW, like little Van Agen thing, whatever those little van wagon things were.
Yeah.
He drove one of those. He would every day wear corduroy shorts that had like dangles hanging off of them. He would wear like a Hawaiian shirt buttoned down to the middle of his chest and all that stuff. Well, I know he sold Chewy's. I know he made like $80 million on the sale of Chewy's, like his portion of it.
Yeah.
And he would roll up and be like, hey, man, sell me some arrows for the kids. I'm going to let them play in the backyard or whatever. But, I mean, it was stuff like that. And I'm like, you can't judge. You would see that guy and be like, it's just some old surfer hippie pothead. And he's also got $80 million. So.
Yeah, we remind our team every time they go to an event. And I've had kids, young kids fiddling around with knives at my table or whatever it shows, and $2,000 knife. Yeah. Dad walks over and
Dad's Amex.
Dad's like, "Oh, what do you think, Johnny?" And he's like, "I want that one." Dad's like, "All right, we'll take that one." And be like, "Well, it's $2,000." Like, okay,
yeah,
sounds good.
No
That's
doubt.
what Johnny wants, and it's like, shit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
unfortunately, Austin has become that. Like Austin, you can't. You just. Like now, my guys, it's not that they're trained. They're so used to seeing the gambit of people run through our doors that they
just expect it.
Yeah, they're just like, it's cool, man. Yeah, take you where you're at. You might be a billionaire.
Every guy that walks in is a billionaire.
Yeah, you're just like, cool, man. Well, what do you need? Need a D-loop? What are we doing? We selling you a bow? But
yeah,
it's cool.
Well, I'm excited for you. We're gonna cut her off here a little bit. We're gonna run up to the building. We got HVAC or air handling unit that they're going to set that I want to kind of watch, but and then I need to shoot my damn bow before I
didn't even bring my.
I
came to attack event without a bow.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm actually jealous. We're going to attack tomorrow. We're going to cruise over to Red Lodge, Montana, which will be fun.
Yeah,
have a little party, see lots of friends. That's the best part of these events, just hanging out with the people.
That's why I'm here, man. It's so cool to mingle and do all the stuff. And
so. But man, I'm super stoked that you're like on that path, and it's going to be cool to see where you guys take it.
It'll be cool.
Yeah,
likewise too, man. It's been fun watching your journey and your stuff and all that. It's inspiring for guys like me that are trying to, in the trenches, trying to build something and make something and stuff like that. So it's cool.
Well,
man.
no matter what comes of all of it, it's like, it's so much more rewarding and fun than just the normal 8 to 5.
Yeah,
like,
no
at
doubt.
the end of the day, like, we're all going to just die.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
And so it's like, what did you do along the way?
Yeah,
right.
no
And
doubt.
whether we grow this thing up and then drive it into a iceberg
Yeah,
and sink it,
sink this puppy,
or it becomes the absolute
true,
most amazing company ever. Like, that's all of it is fun, and I actually enjoy. And I don't ever do them, but when I used to do a little bit with my kids, like, I enjoy puzzles, right? Like when my kids have it's like I never think about doing a puzzle, but if they dump one out on a table and I start into it, I'm like, oh my God, it's like 2 a.m. and I'm still working on this stupid puzzle. And I believe that what we're doing, you and us over here, is we're building a puzzle, right?
Sure.
And it's like, right now, it's like you're putting together the edge pieces, right? And like once your edge is done, then you're going to start filling that thing in, and it feels like a 1,000,000-piece puzzle
for sure,
right? And it's like we're only a few thousand pieces into this thing, and those peaks and valleys you run into are those are those pieces where you just can't find that puzzle piece right at the moment, but you keep searching, and pretty soon, like, you just keep grinding at it, and then you step back and you're like, damn, this thing's coming together.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
But also, like, we're only a tiny bit of the way there too.
No doubt.
Right. It's like,
it's the risk part of it, man. You just have to be willing to take the risk and start on your puzzle.
But it's exciting. It's fun.
Exciting.
Like with what you're trying to do, like, who knows what happens with it and what it ends up looking like down the road. But that unknown is what's so damn, it's a lot like hunting. It's like that unknown of heading into camp
for sure.
And heading out into the woods, and like, you don't know, like you might come home with nothing, or you might,
day one, you might kill the record.
For
sure.
So I think it's just neat that you guys are doing what you're doing. We also have a lot of mutual friends. I think the 2 brands and the 2 companies believe in a lot of the same stuff. We may even have something coming out later together this fall, which would be cool.
Awesome, man. Heck yeah.
So, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man.
It's fun.
Appreciate you letting me come out.
I appreciate the friendship more than anything, like the business stuff. Jess Byers and I talk about it, and it's like, you wonder, like, sometimes you wonder in this thing who your friends are. Yeah. But then there's a few people where you just don't have any doubt.
Yeah, you're not worried about it.
You know who your friends are, and it's like you're definitely one of those.
I'm in the same boat with you guys. Like I don't know. I don't know that I can ever do what y'all can do for me. You've given me free knives and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's cool, symbiotic, and it's fun to have someone that you can go to that you feel like you're going to get an honest answer from. Because like I said, I have 50 million people that want to give me advice, and I don't necessarily want it. And I'm like, I'd rather sit on your couch watching Fox News and have that feel out what you think about somebody or something like that, because I'm going to put weight in that. I'm not just going to be like, man, whatever, it's just another talking head.
And you'll also get advice from me or from other people or whatever that, whoever, Evan, even some of your own business partners. And at the end of the day, sometimes you'll also go against maybe what you'll do what you think is best. Because at the end of the day, that's why also those guys are partnering with you. Mm-hmm. You are the expert in that area.
For sure.
And there's going to be things they're going to say, we should do this or we should do that. And you go, this is how I think we need to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. Mm-hmm. After considering all of the options. Yeah. And that's also why you're there and not someone else.
For sure.
It's awesome. It's awesome, man.
Cool. Thanks again.
Appreciate you. Yeah. Where can people follow you?
So go to it's just Archery at all lowercase Archery Country on Instagram. I think it's the same on Facebook. I'm hardly on. I try not to be on all that stuff. But anyway, those 2, and then AustinArcheryCountry.com website. And it has all the stuff like I said, all of that's currently in a revamp, so we're figuring all that out right now. But
and then people like go to Austin, go to the club. It's freaking awesome. The mothership's awesome, and then go check out your shop.
Everything's cool in Austin,
and your boys will give people plenty of suggestions on where to go get good barbecue.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
It's awesome, man. Thanks, dude. You bet. Awesome.